Hi, it's Allison responding to week 15. Uh, what I'd like to do is something similar I've seen in Dr. Meredith's lecture notes, and that is just respond with some bulleted points about why we cannot view the Middle Eastern region as a region in our foreign policy. These are autonomous nations with separate foreign policy issues with relationship to the United States. And that doesn't even include not only the nuanced approach we need to take and the differences and dissimilarities within the nations themselves. To pull it all together just in regional context denies them their autonomy. It denies that these nations, in some cases, are not allies. They are enemies, and they have different objectives, not only with foreign relations, but within the region itself. So what I'm going to do is just discuss a few points. The first one is, not all of these nations are embracing modernization, if at all, at least at the same speed. Some of these nations are embracing modernization and looking to and seeking liberalization in economics and politics because they believe that is where future prosperity begins. Additionally, they do not share a common history. Some nations were colonized, some were not. Some experienced grand empires like the Persian Empire, and some did not. All of them do share the boundary issues, but how they've responded to those is also very different. The nations within the Middle East are in conflict over the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Some nations have recognized Israel's right to exist, some do not. Some nations are, even if they say, okay, we're going to recognize Israel's right to exist, it contains fractious elements that do not support Israel and are doing everything they can to bring it down. Not all nations view the Palestinian question the same. For example, Jordan saying, yes, come be citizens, and others saying no, and allowing that situation to continue without any chance of citizenship in other neighboring countries. The nations view the role of the female differently, not only politically and socially, but in religion as well. Economically, and so no, we can't say they're all the same and let's all put it together in one regional context, because this is a huge concern and issue for the future of democracy and the future of just female and civic rights, females and civic rights within the region. Additionally, there is a huge divide and many times conflict between the Sunni and Shia sects of the Muslim faith. How we approach them and their viewpoints on Sharia law and their viewpoints on receiving other religions and accepting them is different. These nations have different foreign relations with the United States. So to group them all together would be counterproductive because they do not respond to us in the same manner. Finally, again, this seems so simplistic, but these are major concerns that show the diversity in the region. And finally, that is oil. Some nations experience tremendous wealth because of oil production. Some nations do not. They're either close to running out or they never had it. And they're recipients of funding from other nations who do receive wealth through oil. What's interesting to me is things like oil, the role of females, Sunni Shia sects, the viewpoints on the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, U.S. relations, European colonization, modernization, all of those things, not to mention just the people. These are different people. Yes, they reside in different borders, but it's not just geographical. These are human beings who deserve the opportunity to reflect democracy in the way that they choose. Otherwise, it's not democracy. To say it's strictly going to be an Arab-style democracy or continue to view Middle East politics, which, by the way, completely excludes Iran, and to view politics through that lens is to continue in the imaginings that got us in this, partially in this mess we're in anyway, through our lack of understanding. So my hope is that we see them as autonomous regions. Yes, common themes. broad themes like Islam, but then we have to look at the different sects of Islam. Yes, broad themes like oil, but we have to understand that not every nation is producing or receiving the benefits of that. So I think it's important that we continue to have a nuanced approach. I think it's important that we continue to educate ourselves, that we rely on scholars to provide that information for policymakers, that we construct a vision for the future, not just based on our ideals and perceptions and what even Bernard Lewis called our illusions and misperceptions, but out of the facts on the ground. And that means we need to understand. It's almost like we need to take a pause, develop a greater understanding before we take our next action. Thanks so much, guys. Well done.